Great. So as I said, we are here today to talk about GLEAM Cohort 2, share a little bit about the program itself, some expectations for applying and general timeline information, and where you can turn to for support as you work to complete the application. Although I do see some familiar faces on the screen, for those who don't know me, I am Allison Pickens. I'm a literacy support specialist here at DESE, and I'm also the GLEAM coordinator. So any and all GLEAM questions, feel free to send my way. I will be guiding you through the presentation today, and you probably have seen my name in your email box quite a bit. So our objectives for today are to share the GLEAM Cohort 2 vision goals and programming, as well as articulate expectations for a high quality proposal, share upcoming resources and available technical assistance that you can take advantage of in preparing your proposal, and then of course answer your questions. This is our brief agenda for today. We're going to be speaking about both of the GLEAM programs. There are two. There's a pre-K through 12 program and there's a preschool only program. So we'll be able to share information about both of that, as well as important application information. So to start, if your district or charter has at least one school in which the percentage of students identified as low income is 50% or greater, or at least one high school in which the students identified as low income is 40% or greater, then you are eligible to apply for GLEAM. There is an eligibility list on the GLEAM website for you to double check, and if you are at all unsure, you can feel free to reach out to me at any time. These eligibility requirements are federally regulated, as GLEAM is a federal grant, which we will learn more about in just a moment. So GLEAM is an acronym for Growing Literacy Equity Across Massachusetts, and it is the Massachusetts program name for the federal Comprehensive Literacy State Development Grant. The purpose of the federal grant is to create a comprehensive literacy program to advance literacy skills for all students, especially those who have been historically underserved. In Massachusetts, this federal grant takes the form of GLEAM. GLEAM grants will support districts in creating deep and lasting improvements to literacy through the development and strengthening of MTSS, high quality professional development, and individualized support from an expert literacy consultant, as well as the selection and implementation of high quality screening, core, and intervention materials. Additionally, the GLEAM program also provides support in increasing high quality preschool seats, all in support of expanding and improving evidence-based, equitable, inclusive, and culturally responsive instructional practices in all classrooms. We're going to start with the GLEAM pre-K through 12 program. So this program is comprised of two cohorts. One cohort is already underway and in session. That is cohort 1. And one that we anticipate beginning in late February is cohort 2, which is why we're all here today. So this second cohort asks that all districts applying to the pre-K through 12 program select one of two grade bands to focus on, either pre-K through 5 or 6 through 12. Districts may choose to focus on every grade within that selected grade band, or a select subgroup of grades like K to 2, 6 through 8, 9 through 12, whichever area of focus you want to really prioritize in your district. It is important to know that you have options in applying for the grade band, and the choices should be rooted in whichever you feel would best lead to great district-wide improvements for student outcomes. Lastly, and we will talk more about this in a moment, the pre-K through 12 applicants will also need to select one of two tracks to focus on. For those who are interested in the preschool only GLEAM grant, please sit tight. I promise we will get to that in just a few moments. So the pre-K through 12 program primarily supports districts in developing, bolstering, and sustaining a multi-tiered system of support. A multi-tiered system of support which utilizes evidence-based and culturally responsive practices, high-quality core curricular materials, screeners, and assessments, tiered evidence-based intervention and instructional strategies, and aligned and high-quality professional learning experiences is a proactive school and district-wide framework that supports all students. All GLEAM grant activities will support districts in strengthening and maintaining all aspects of an effective, culturally responsive, and robust MTSS for ELA and literacy. For those who would like more information about DESE's current MTSS blueprint model, philosophy, or components, please feel free to visit DESE's MTSS website, the address of which you can see at the top of this slide. So how does GLEAM do that? Primarily, GLEAM does this through two different tracks of funding, which you will decide which track your district will be applying to based on your needs and where you are with regard to curriculum. Track 1 focuses entirely on the Tier 1 core experience all students receive, and Track 2 focuses greater on Tiers 2 and 3 interventions, although strengthening Tier 1 is also part of Track 2. The tracks are intended to support your district's improvement goals, with the first track focused on strengthening Tier 1 core instruction and the other track dedicated to supporting interventions for students who require additional instruction and support. Thus, Track 1 is intended for applicants who are focused on the pre-K through 5 or 6 through 12 grade band without high-quality core curricular materials in place. Track 2 is intended for applicants focused on the pre-K to 5 or 6 through 12 grade band with high-quality core curricular materials in place. If you are applying to include pre-K in your pre-K through 12 grant, please make your track decisions based on what curriculum exists in your K to 5, because all pre-K grantees will go through a separate pre-K curriculum rubric review process, guided and supported by EEC specialists. As I said, to qualify for Track 1, districts must have and be utilizing high-quality core curricular materials for ELA and literacy. For the purposes of the GLEAM program, DESE defines high quality as those core comprehensive materials that are rated meets or partially meets expectations on Curate. If a Curate review is not available, core comprehensive materials must be rated green on Gateway 1 and Gateway 2 on EdReports to qualify as high quality. Please note that preschool curricular materials are not rated on Curate or EdReports. Thus, like I said, regardless of track, grantees who are choosing to include pre-K in their grant will participate in an evaluation of preschool curricular materials utilizing a process through EEC. Links to Curate and EdReports can be found on DESE Center for Instructional Support website, the address of which you can see here. Regardless of which track you select, it is important to note that there are financial expectations for districts participating in GLEAM. GLEAM program grant recipients will commit to funding 50% of the cost of instructional materials, regardless of track. Track 1 recipients will be responsible for funding 50% of the cost of procurement of high-quality ELA and literacy core curricular materials. Track 2 recipients will be responsible for 50% of the cost of procurement of instructional materials within Tiers 2 and 3, as identified by a comprehensive needs assessment, which was one of the first few activities that you will complete. Please also note that there are funding restrictions for very large districts, which you can learn more about as you read the fund use document within the RFP for this grant. This grant, however, will cover the costs of any approved assessments or professional development, as well as any preschool materials. As I stated earlier, GLEAM Cohort 2 is going to span approximately 2.5 years. In FY23, so from approximately late February to late August, both Track 1 and Track 2 recipients will focus primarily on two central activities: a systems analysis and leadership coaching and development. The systems analysis, which is conducted in collaboration with a GLEAM literacy consultant, will establish a strong foundation for Year 2 equity-driven literacy GLEAM work. The consultant will support the comprehensive analysis of systems, policies, and processes contributing to the current state of teaching and learning. Those grantees, including preschool in their grant, will receive funding for a systems analysis specific to early childhood education. Also in FY23, districts will receive leadership development for a district level leader who will be responsible for overseeing the GLEAM grant across the district. Through this coaching, the district leaders will identify district personnel, teachers, principals, and other leaders who are committing to leading the GLEAM work through the entire GLEAM grant funding period. You can find more about the systems analysis and leadership coaching in the fund use document, RFP, and Part 3 of the GLEAM grant application. Now we can dive a little bit more deeply in what to expect in FY24 and FY25. The first grant activity for Track 1 applicants in FY24 is for pre-K through 5 grantees that do not yet have a high-quality early literacy screening assessment in place. The selection, purchasing, and implementation of a screener for Track 1 applicants is an essential first step in identifying students' strengths and needs. For those including preschool, a preschool-specific literacy screening assessment will also be part of this process and is expected to be integrated into the district's broader screening process. The next FY24 planned activity for Track 1 applicants is the evaluating and selecting of materials. Districts will engage in a process of evaluating and selecting high-quality core curricular materials for ELA and literacy, guided by department specialists and supported by your literacy consultant, from approximately September 2023 through May 2024. Additionally, grantees including preschool classrooms in their grant will go through a concurrent process of evaluating preschool curricular materials. The third planned activity for FY24 Track 1 applicants is the purchasing of these materials. Districts will be expected to procure the selected materials in all schools and classrooms participating in the grant. These curricular materials, which will be the result of the evaluating and selecting process, should be purchased during FY24. And as a reminder, the GLEAM grant covers 50% of the cost of these approved materials, with the district covering the remaining 50%. All of this information you can also find on the fund use document and part 3 of the GLEAM application. For Track 2 districts, your FY24 activities look a little bit different. First, however, if pre-K to 5 grantees do not yet have high-quality early literacy screening assessments in place, Track 2 recipients will be able to go through a process of evaluating, selecting, and implementing a high-quality early literacy screening assessment. Next, all Track 2 applicants will complete a comprehensive literacy needs assessment. In conjunction with their expert literacy consultant, the district GLEAM leadership team will evaluate the strengths and needs in the school's ELA and literacy multi-tiered system of support and identify materials, assessments, and or professional development that is needed to improve ELA literacy experiences and outcomes for all students. From there, the GLEAM leadership team will utilize the results of their comprehensive needs assessment to develop and finalize a district-specific literacy action plan that will be enacted in the 24-25 school year. And then in FY25, the final year of GLEAM, both tracks will receive funding for professional development of implementing the new materials or the literacy action plan. And Track 2 districts will be able to purchase additional materials, assessments, professional development they need to fully enact their literacy action plan. Throughout the course of the grant, each participating district will have access to a comprehensive, on-site, ongoing, and individualized support from a literacy expert in a consulting role, and will be able to participate in monthly professional development networks that are organized and sponsored by DESE. Now let's talk briefly about the other GLEAM program, which is the GLEAM preschool only program. As I said, districts can select to include their district preschool classrooms in their pre-K to 12 grant. However, many communities want to ensure that the preschool programming offered throughout the community is aligned. And so for those districts that want to focus on community-wide preschool classrooms in both the district and in local partners, should consider applying to the GLEAM preschool only program. So the GLEAM preschool only program supports districts in creating deep and lasting improvements to quality preschool seats in both the district and EEC licensed community partners. On a holistic level, the GLEAM preschool program grants focus on evaluating and selecting high quality preschool curricular and intervention materials, an early literacy screening assessment, as well as professional development and support for the skillful, inclusive, and culturally responsive use of assessments and materials. For the GLEAM preschool grant, districts will be expected to develop, strengthen, and maintain strong partnerships with EEC licensed community partners. As such, though the district itself is the primary applicant, EEC licensed community partner programs are expected to participate fully and equally in the program. Specifically, the GLEAM program will provide support and guidance for districts to develop and strengthen a high-quality mixed delivery system for early education by identifying and strengthening partner relationships, examining the current state of early education throughout the community, and developing a plan for aligning district classrooms and community partner classrooms to ensure all students have access to high-quality early learning experiences. Before delving a bit more specifically into the GLEAM preschool program itself, I do want to clearly articulate what a mixed delivery system means. So as defined by the Every Student Succeeds Act, a mixed delivery system is a system of early childhood care and education services that are delivered through a combination of programs, providers, and settings that is supported by a combination of public and private funds. So examples may include a community Head Start, family and center-based childcare programs, and district public schools. The GLEAM preschool program centers around three central components: curriculum and instruction, assessment and database decision-making, and professional learning and customized support over the course of 2.5 years. Let's dive a bit more deeply into the GLEAM preschool activities. In FY23, the GLEAM grant will fund a comprehensive early childhood education comprehensive systems analysis. This analysis, which will be collaboratively completed with the expert literacy consultant, will establish a strong foundation for year 2 equity-driven GLEAM work. The GLEAM consultant will support the comprehensive analysis of systems, policies, and processes contributing to the current state of early education, teaching, and learning within the community, focusing specifically on early literacy and language, expanded access, and community partnerships. The GLEAM consultant will also provide the district leader customized leadership coaching throughout FY23 and beyond to support the development of a comprehensive GLEAM plan, the selection of a diverse GLEAM leadership team to drive the work of GLEAM, and build leadership capacity to sustain early literacy improvements beyond the grant funding period. In FY24, again with the support of a GLEAM consultant, districts and community partners will embark on a collaborative, equitable, and inclusive process of evaluating existing curricular materials and assessments based on EEC's curriculum rubric review process. This process will be supported by EEC specialists so that the community can determine what curricular materials and assessments best meet the needs of their students. The grant will fund the purchase of these materials. And in FY25, the grant will fund ongoing professional development to implement these materials and support educators in providing high quality and inclusive services to all students. Throughout the course of all 3 years of the grant, the GLEAM leadership team, which is comprised of a group of educators across the community, will, with the support of their consultant, move the work forward and ensure long-term growth and sustainability and improving early learning experiences and outcomes for all students. Now that we've examined the specifics of each GLEAM program grant, let's discuss how to apply for GLEAM and what to consider when completing the proposal. When developing your proposal, please keep in mind the following. A high-quality proposal will articulate a clear approach to building and sustaining multi-tiered system of support for literacy, will demonstrate favorable conditions and the resources necessary to make and sustain meaningful literacy program improvements, and will bring together a diverse coalition of stakeholders committed to the grant activities. For more detailed tips and considerations for completing the GLEAM application, please view the GLEAM video series, which is on the GLEAM website and which I will mention in just a few moments. Above all, please remember that a collaborative application process is essential. Rather than being a top-down initiative, GLEAM program grants will respond to district strengths, needs, challenges, and opportunities, and will reflect a unique and diverse local context. District leaders should seek out the voices and perspectives of as many diverse stakeholders as possible, particularly those educators who work with or support historically underserved students. DESE seeks to see proposals are supported by stakeholders in various and diverse roles. Before submitting your proposal, you will have to be sure to complete all components of the application. For those applying for the preschool only grant, you will complete all 5 of the required forms for Fund Code 508. For those applying to the pre-K through 5 grade band, you will complete all 5 of the required forms for Fund Code 509. For those applying to the 6 through 12 grade band, you will complete all 5 of the required forms for Fund Code 510. Those forms include a general signature page, budget details, the required program information, and both a school and district assurance page. Please note that digital signatures are not accepted for forms 1, 4, and 5. Instead, you must include an image of a wet signature. It is important that you use the correct fund code when submitting your documents, and all forms should be submitted in the formats articulated in the RFP. As you work to develop your proposal, please keep the deadline in mind. The deadline for submission is Monday, December 12th by 5:00 p.m. And all forms should be emailed in the correct format and subject title in a single email to gleam@mass.gov. We do highly encourage early submission when possible. Before we jump into our Q&A portion of this info session, I do want to briefly review the technical support and resources available to applicants during this application period. Specifically, a Q&A document will be updated regularly and posted on the GLEAM website. Also on the GLEAM website, you will find contact information for DESE and EEC specialists for specific questions not yet reflected in the Q&A document. Secondly, as I mentioned earlier, there's a comprehensive GLEAM video series, which will break down each component within the application and provide considerations districts and leaders should keep in mind as they continue to develop their proposal collaboratively. Those video series are hosted by me, so if you've enjoyed listening to my voice for the last 25 minutes, you can seek out videos to keep listening more. Additionally, each week I hold an office hour from 3:00 to 4:00 p.m. on Monday. These live office hours are an opportunity for you to pop in, receive some personal experience, some one-on-one time to ask your questions. Please do keep in mind, however, that this is a competitive grant, so I may be limited in what I am allowed to answer in those registration hours. To register for the office hours, you can go to the GLEAM website to click on the registration link, which will allow you to register for all of the office hours, and then you can just come as needed. This is just a screenshot of the videos that are available to you in the GLEAM video series. We also have a video for the preschool only grant that I simply could not fit in this screenshot, but it is on the GLEAM website, I promise. So now that we have gone through the basics, I would love to take questions from you. My colleague Linda has kindly been monitoring the chat. So we will start with the questions in the chat. Please enter them in the chat whenever you think of them, and you can feel free to come off mute when we finish going through the questions in the chat.
Hello, everyone. So the first question is from Brenda. Is it possible to include grade 5 with grades 6 through 8 when we apply?
Thank you for that question, Brenda. So due to the federal regulations, the grade bands do have to be separate. So if you were applying for grades 6 through 8, grade 5 would not be able to be part of that, as that would be a different fund code.
Thank you.
The next question, it comes from, please correct me if I'm wrong, I think Jose. How will needs assessments work if we are deciding between current high quality materials and we'll decide which one in the spring?
Jose, could you provide a little bit more context about what you mean by in the spring? Do you mean this coming spring?
Yeah, so we're current, and I think, well, so we're actually in the process of piloting between materials, and they're all on the high quality end of the spectrum. So we're piloting them and we're hoping to make a decision by the spring. So it sounds like our calendar may not necessarily match up with yours, because I think you're anticipating that districts will make a decision in spring of 2024 for
Correct. So you are a bit of a year ahead. So if you are applying for track 1 to receive that 50% funding for those materials, you still can apply for track 1. You just, if you were awarded, would be kind of a track 1.5, if you will, which in this current cohort, we do have a few of those where you will be able to get the funding to support the purchase. And then you will just be a little bit ahead when it comes to implementation. And so for your systems analysis and for your consultant work, it would be around what are the current systems and structures in place that will support effective implementation if the decision regarding HQIM has already been made.
Thank you.
The next question comes from Brenda. Most tier 3 instructional materials are not rated on ed reports. Do you have criteria for intervention materials?
That's a really great question. So for the track 2 districts, before intervention materials are selected, you will go through a literacy needs assessment with your literacy leadership team and your expert consultant. That will basically be a really in-depth examination of literacy teaching and learning, what assessments are in place, what materials are in place, and where are the gaps. And then based on the result of that, you will be able to come to a decision on what materials would best meet your specific needs. So because there aren't a lot of intervention materials currently rated in a system like Ed Reports, this would be very much a district by district decision that would be the result of a comprehensive analysis, which we have a lot of guidance to provide you on, and a team decision that would make the most sense for your students and what they need.
A follow-up question from Brenda. If we intend to purchase materials for our community school, which would be more intervention type materials and not tier 1, would we be applying to track 1 or track 2?
So the decision of applying to track 1 or track 2 is determined based on what curricular materials are currently in place in tier 1. So if high quality core curricular materials are already in place, then you would apply to track 2. If high quality tier 1 core materials are not currently in place, then you would apply to track 1.
Thank you.
Question from Jose. Do we get to pick the expert and describe the scope of work in our application, or does DESE appoint the expert / consultant?
That is a great question. So DESE will match or recommend pre-approved consultant groups with districts based on need. We have been working with our pre-approved consultant groups since the start of cohort 1. So they are very aware of the GLEAM program. And then you would be able to work with them individually to determine the strengths and needs of your district and what you would like to see out of the partnership. So it is very individualized to what the districts need. However, DESE has pre-approved consultants that you will work with.
Yeah, no, the reason I posted, I just found out today that a consultant we're currently working with is on your approved list, or at least that's what they're claiming. So,
Okay, so
it might make sense, like if we were to apply, in my mind, it kind of makes sense to keep it all together. I don't know.
right. So make a note of that in your application of who you're working with and why you would like to continue with them. Make a note of that in the question about what you're hoping to get out of GLEAM, and the scoring committee will take that into account.
Last chat question from Carol. Would a new core curriculum be implemented in 24-25?
If you are applying to track 1, yes, you would go through the evaluating and selecting process in the 23-24 school year, and then you would implement the new materials in 24-25 with a great deal of implementation support from the consultant and from professional development funded by the grant.
Thank you for clarifying.
Another question just came through from Christine. Just to be clear, if we are evaluating and selecting this current year, we can still apply.
Yes, you can. You would have to make note of where you are in the process of evaluating and selecting, what your intended timeline is. And then depending on when you plan to purchase the materials, that would determine what track you apply for. So you can apply for track 1 to support the funding of those materials. However, it is very important for you to note that funding for curriculum purchases will not become available until October. So if you would like to purchase the materials prior to October, GLEAM grant funds would not be able to support that, as we must follow the federal fiscal year, which does not start until October. If you would like to wait and utilize those GLEAM funds, you can apply for track 1. If you would like to purchase the materials using other sources of funding, you could apply for track 2 and then receive implementation support, as I was explaining to Jose.
You're all set from the chat.
Thank you, Linda. If there are any other questions, please feel free to come off mute or put them in the chat. Or if you're like me and we hang up and you're like, oh, I just thought of one, feel free to email me. I will respond right away, and I will update our public Q&A document with all of the questions that we've received today. So here's my email. You can email me at my direct email, which is allison.d.pickens@mass.gov, or you can email the general GLEAM email, which is gleam@mass.gov. I have access to both of them, and I will answer your questions quickly and efficiently and update the public Q&A, so that's available to everybody. If you have questions about the GLEAM preschool program, again, you can feel free to email me. You can also email my colleague, Kathy Lang, who works with EEC and does a wonderful job in really coordinating the GLEAM preschool program, and she has great knowledge about it. So her email is up here as well. And as always, please keep referring to the GLEAM website. There's a lot of information there, including the video series, a link to the office hour registration, information about our first cohort, so you can learn a little bit more about what they're doing, and links to the RFP and fund use documents that you need in order to complete the application. And as always, I truly appreciate everyone's time and wonderful questions today. I know how difficult it is to step away in a busy afternoon. So again, if anything comes up, please feel free to email me with any questions or register for office hours. And a recording of this webinar will be posted to our website in the coming days.
Another question came through.
Oh, wonderful.
Can assessments be purchased from Jacqueline?
Yes, assessments will be able to be purchased. As long as they align with the needs of your district, you will be able to purchase assessments. Are those all the questions, Linda? Great. Well, thank you all again for your time. I truly appreciate it. Please continue to reach out, and I hope you all have a wonderful week.